I just realized I don't have the stupid thing in here. I guess you guys are going to have to remember it's Red Morning because I surely can't show you. All right. Welcome. Have fun. Car Free Podcast, 2 weeks in a row. What can I tell you? I don't know what to say. But we're going to have fun on this one. I got to get the windows tiled up so I can see your comments. I already see you guys have been busy as hell. Adam, Caleb, thank you for the $20 super chat, by the way. Been watching you since the summer of 2019. Geez, almost since the start. And it's helped me a lot. Just wanted to say thank you for that. Dude, don't worry about thanking me. Just carve out some success for your life. Use the red pill models that help you, ditch the ones that don't, and we will call it square. So, everybody. So, we're just getting started here. So, what do I got on topics? Well, it's a fun fact. I had a few set up here. Let me pull them up. What does the red pill even mean? From Purarchy to pill, regression to the mean, and there's no gumroad courses. I was having fun with this one. So, like, what does the red pill even mean? I think that's important because a lot of guys are here because they followed some very popular YouTube or Twitter accounts, and they hear you to stop being a bitch and come on and man up and all that shit, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. And then for some reason they're like, you know what, I need to learn how to make some fried rice, and then you found your way here. And then you hear me saying some things you've never heard of before, and you're like, what in the hell is all this stuff? I'm here to tell you that this is the red pill. It's not a marketing gimmick. It's not some goofy, ploy to get chicks. It's not pickup artistry with a little bit of an edge. It's not, being tradcon is the new hip bullshit. Like it's that stupid song from Back to the Future. Huey Lewis in the News. It really is just a set of mental models, literally tools in a toolbox for you to use or not use as you see fit to establish a more successful life. And it turns out there's like thousands of dudes who have been here before you to talk about their problems, sort their problems out, collect their problems together, and put like a coalesced structure around it. And that's where you're at. But what can I say? Might as well get started on it. So what does the red pill even mean? Now this one, I love doing this one. Let me put a timestamp on this. Like I said, normally when Carl is doing these things, I have that break while he's talking about something to quickly put the timestamps on there for you for the time. Unfortunately, I don't. So you have to put up with me typing on my keyboard here in the middle of the podcast. What can I say? So what is the red pill? To be fair, this is the power of love. I was talking about hip to be square, but whatever. At least Marty catches on to the reference there. It's American Psycho reference. Anyways, so what is the red pill? I'm sure you guys have all heard of Rollo Tomassi. That's fine. But Rollo isn't the red pill. Rollo is... Well, let's take a step back. Let's go straight from the start. There is pickup artists. They started in the late 90s. Then they kind of picked up in the 2000s. They kind of died off in the 2010s. And it appears with a bunch of Zoomers, they're making a resurgence so they realize that aviator shades and top hats are a thing. Who'd have thunk? Around 2009, which for me would have been right as I got back from deployment and just as I got out of the game. I think I would have just started dating my girl around this time. There was this guy, Hawaiian libertarian, Keone Galt. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not Hawaiian, so you have to bear with me on this one. He came up with what I would consider to be the very first red-pilled post. Because back then, there was no social media, not like it is today. The iPhone just came out. And most of what guys did online was just blogging. A guy would write in his journal online, posted there for everybody to see. Other guys would read his blog, and then they would comment on their own blog, and that's how the thing got rolling. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did this and that. Oh, I disagree with this, etc. It was a very decentralized network. Now, at the time, because guys would talk about all kinds of things, they talk about sleeping with women, they talk about their jobs, they talk about, man stuff. a bunch of feminists who are just diehard loving the fact they got to finally work for the New York Times and waste their time writing listicles for BuzzFeed or whoever was the big one back then. Perez Hilton, maybe? I don't know. They thought, I don't like guys. I'm going to talk shit about them. And so they had this expose. I wish I could find it. I can't find it now. If somebody has it, please send it to me. Where they were saying some to the effect of guys getting together online was a sort of sphere of men. And we were all very bad and evil. So that's where the term manosphere came from. It was essentially well-to-do spinster white chicks trying to make an N-bomb for men, which was... And then a bunch of guys were like, damn, that's catchy. All right, I'm going to use that. And that's how the term came around. So realize, when you hear people talk about the manosphere unironically, it's like the equivalent of watching NWA talk to each other. Something to think about. Back to the story. Keone Galt, if I'm not mistaken, was either a pickup artist or a day gamer. I'm really not too familiar with him on that aspect. But he came out with a post on September 15th, 2009. And I would argue that this is the day that Red Pill became a thing. Game is Red Pill. Quintessential post. I reference it all the time. If you've seen me in the Patreon community where we're stuck with a bunch of guys, solving problems, crushing it in our lives, feel free to come check it out if you want to. But yeah. And he starts off with like a matrix allegory. I'm kind of go through the basics of it here. So at the very least, you can understand if somebody's bullshitting you or not. And he uses like a matrix allegory here. Because I guess it came on the heels of some big fight between some pickup guys, some MGTOW guys, some men's right activist guys. And he's like, I don't like any of these guys. And he uses like a matrix allegory. You know, something happens which makes us question the rituals we blindly followed or confronted with, a choice. Take the blue pill or take the red pill. And that's kind of how it started. Because, I mean, this was like 2009. So the Matrix is still fresh in everybody's minds. It was a very catchy metaphor and people understood it. He brings up the idea of social engineering and cultural indoctrination. Which is, again, you'd think that would go down the road of like the conspiracy theorists and the lizard people. But it's not so much. He kind of keeps it fairly pragmatic and practical. Makes the case that like, the way things are now, we can no longer live the way we were told to live because it's just not feasible. And I think that's kind of true on its face. Like you already know if the go to college, get a good job, marry young, have a wife and kids, stay together until you die. Like that's just, I haven't seen it as an option. There's always one guy who's like, yeah, I've been married 30 years, so what of it? And I'm like, how old are you? And he's like, yeah, I'm 65. I'm like, exactly. Would be nice. Probably not going to happen. Guys got to adapt. And that's the core. You can tell if somebody is red-pilled or not on how they look at this. If they frame it as an adaptation to environmental changes, then you know they got a head on their shoulders. If they want to say those Gerstern feminists are going to take your guns, then you know you got an idiot on your hands. But he's probably got a great Gumroad course, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Yeah. Look at you guys. Elton John. And so he kind of goes on. And I love his example because it's such like a bare bones relatable example of like what he means when he's talking about this kind of stuff. And he says right here, he uses a double bind. If you guys don't know, I talk about double binds in the Practical Female Psychology on the Sidebar series. Again, that's in a playlist here. Says things like, you know, whenever your woman asks which two paint colors you prefer, you have to say you don't care. The alternative is surely picking the wrong color and paying dearly for it. And he goes, this is like blue-pilled paranoia. Fear of paying dearly for upsetting a woman. Anyone that even has a rudimentary understanding of game knows exactly what you should do to a woman when you're picking a color. Like, it's funny. And this is the part that I kind of enjoy about this whole space is, like a bunch of guys that were just, you know, I just want to pick up women. And they follow a guy with a top hat and aviator shades. That's Mystery, by the way, if you guys are too young to know. Dressed like a clown, but had fun. The first clown ever who was happy. Well, I guess he wasn't happy. He was a bit depressed, but whatever. It's not the point. Then these guys started noticing, oh, okay, so that same stuff I applied here, where like a girl getting angry at me isn't a bad thing, versus I'm paranoid that if my wife gets mad at me, I got to walk on eggshells around her. And they're like, turns out I don't have to fake it because I understand this stuff and I've kind of made it. And he brings up a couple of the goofy tradcon MRA types that started complaining about it. One guy's like, my ex-wife used to love putting me into impossible situations. Like, do you think that supermodel is prettier than me? Wrong answer once is yes. Oh, you don't think I'm pretty? And wrong answer two is no. And liar. And so I found myself avoiding talking to her at all. And this is like one of those things that it drives me nuts. Because like 2009, that's 12, almost 13 years ago. And guys are still having this that exact same situation. Guys have been talking about this forever. It's so fundamentally easy to understand it through red pill tools. In this case, there's two things to pull from it. The first one is if a girl's that you're with is asking you if you think that other girl is pretty, she's one, testing you for sexual receptiveness, which sounds counterintuitive, but bear with me, because I think I'm going to talk about that Sunday on Practical Female Psychology, the series on this channel. Come check it out. It's like 5 ads so far on other things that this channel's doing, but this is important. A lot of married guys end up with a slowly dead or dying bedroom, and they wonder what the hell happened. It's something because of a phenomenon called the Madonna whore complex. It should be understandable on its face, but the idea that you treat women as, Eloi and Morlocks, sluts and mothers, and by separating women into two distinct categories, it saves our ego from the idea that you could date a girl that possibly likes sex and might cheat on you, right? But it's all cope. Anyways, so when they start throwing stuff like that, do you think that girl's pretty? Most guys will be like, okay, she wants me to tell her that she's prettier than that girl. And they'll go overboard. Like, oh yeah, no, that chick's a slut, whatever. Here's the problem with that. When you do that, it tells your girl she's pointing to a slutty, sexually liberated girl, and you're shaming her for it. So in her mind, she just goes, okay, sex is bad, being sexual is bad, so I better clam up, because this guy, who I'm supposed to trust with my world, is going to say the same thing about me if I put on some hooker shoes, even if it's in the bedroom. And then a guy sits there wondering, hey, how come my wife hasn't slept with me in 6 months? It's like, well, it's because you thought she was a Morlock or an Eloi. I always get those mixed up. But this is what the guys frame it as, a double bind. And this is like a bad problem with frame. Answer one is yes. He thinks, and she doesn't actually say this. He just assumes she'll say this. You don't think I'm pretty. First off, you don't even have to respond to that. She's not going to leave because she has that weird moment of crisis. But then the answer two is liar. And that's the clever part too. Because I've told you on this channel a ton of times that girls they may not be smarter than men. You can argue that till the cows come home. But what you cannot say is, even if you are smarter, they'll beat your ass with experience. Some girls have been sleeping with guys and dating since they were 13 years old. 13. Back when you were still playing video games and never even wanted to leave your house. These girls are already getting notches. And so when you do stuff like this, she knows you're lying. She is pretty. She actively knows it. She's testing you for something else. And by you lying to her, she just knows, like, I can't trust this guy. And it's a weird red-pilled thing where they call you, oh, you're misogynist, you're a bad person. It's like, yeah, but, I'm not lying. And it's funny. Like, you throw out that line, look, I may be an asshole, but I'll never lie to you. It's a powerful statement. 2009. 2009 we had this stuff. Something to think about. And he says himself, taking the blue pill renders many men utterly clueless to the shit test. And failing these tests are relationship destroyers. 2009. And I'm not saying this was like brand new back then either. These guys knew this back in like the 2000s, which meant they heard it from guys in the 1990s and etc. Like, I don't know how far back it goes, but like, we have no excuse at this point. The message is all out there. And then he brings up the idea that women manipulate. I mean, everybody should kind of know that one on its face too. And, you begin to see the common thread here. It's that the blue pill mindset has left so many men clueless about how to deal with their wives and or girlfriends. All these preceding examples are men who are afraid of their wives' emotional state. Their wives' emotional state freaks them out. We call it walking on eggshells. Keep in mind too, yeah, red pill, even when it first started, it didn't make any distinction whether you were in a relationship or single. Women are women. You treat women the way you treat women. If they're married, all it means is you just focus on the one with keeping options open for others. If you're single, you focus on whichever one happens to be in front of you. So you don't break that stupid rule where it's like a sniper game where it's all about getting the one, right? So it's kind of funny. So then you're like, okay, so what is the red pill? This is what the red pill is. This is guys talking about strategy. In this case, he kind of alludes to a lot of other things. So this isn't strategy in and of itself. This is more of a meta critique of people ignoring strategy. Back then, they used to call it mental masturbation, of course. And then wrapping it all within a container and a pithy little matrix metaphor. It's tongue-in-cheek. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Don't take this stuff literally, but do take it seriously. Because while it's funny to hear, oh, he's using matrix references like a chode. Yeah, but when your wife starts asking if that other girl's pretty, and 6 months later you wonder why she's never sleeping with you, you can look back at this and go, okay, I get it. I guess I shouldn't have focused so much on that matrix reference, huh? Like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't. And he brings up, and this is something I brought up too. So if you guys remember Dalrock, Christian, conservative blogger on the sphere, he always brought up like the big picture kind of stuff, and he talked about threat point. Threat point was the idea that we already know divorces are absolutely brutal, especially to men. But it's not like that to all men. But that's not the point. By the occasional head on a pike, by the occasional acrimonious divorce, where a guy is just battered, it keeps all the other men afraid of being put in that situation. And that has a cooling off effect, where it means men stop acting in their own best interest and defer more often to women, which again creates a more likely scenario of those threats to actually happen. It's this weird thing. So he kind of talks about it here too. He calls it the emasculation paradox. I have a video on that on the channel. Feel free to check it out. Yeah, because if a married man stands up for himself in today's climate, he could find himself put on his own house, paying a chunk of his paycheck to his ex-wife and seeing his kids when and if she decides that. Like, think about that. Imagine, and this is the one time I'll use like genuine desire unironically. If there is a genuine desire in a relationship, and I mean there's like, it's really there. She's not there just faking it for a paycheck or something, right? One fight's not going to ruin that. Like, no girl has left a guy because she got angry. Ask me how I know. A girl has never left a guy because he did something that she found, irritating. Some guys pull through on all kinds of stuff. But it's these guys that assume the instant, and they're just terrified of a girl's emotions. And again, and they didn't get into it in this one, but I'm going to go on a bit of digression here. The reason for this is mostly because we were given the result of failed parenting strategies. So that first generation of like strong, independent women who had the birth control pill left their husbands at an alarming rate. Divorce rate just skyrocketed. What happened from that? A lot of kids were raised by mom, and mom didn't have dad around. So what does mom do? Well, mom's overworked. She's a single mom. She's strong and independent, and she's a girl. She uses girl tools. The thing about girl tools is reputational attacks are big. Guys is mostly just about rules and punishment. As long as you're consistent, it's all good. Kids love structure like that. But mom's like, you're not a good boy unless you do what I want. And if mom gets mad, then she stops loving you, or so our limbic brain tells us. And then when she stops loving you, you're a child, so you're going to die out on your own in the woods, getting eaten by a bear. So you're absolutely terrified of female emotions, like negative female emotions. It's limbic brain. You couldn't articulate it. You're like a fucking 5-year-old kid. Who cares? But then that's the problem. That's one girl in your life. You turn 5, you go to school. All the guys are out of school now. They don't teach. Everybody's afraid of getting accused of being Chris Hansen's best buddy. You know what I mean? And so there's a female teacher. Schools are now packed, 30, 40 people to a room. The teacher does the same thing. Good students do this. Good students do that. And the guy's already kind of trained to be afraid of negative female emotions. Now he gets another authority figure in front of him doing the exact same thing. Reinforces. Some guys will make it all the way to like 18, 19, 20, where they have a single male figure in their life of any authority. Now they've had a frontal lobe develop. They have adult, thoughts, and they've managed to build up an insane justification for all this stuff. And if you ask me if this sounds stupid, I'm like, no, it's not stupid. Maybe you didn't get affected by it, but more men have. And that's the problem that we're in right now. So is it any wonder that these guys get into relationships and they're terrified of their wife getting angry at them? I would say no. And again, we knew this as far back as 2009. 2009. Flat out right here. Standing up for yourself is the only way your wife can respect, admire, lust, and love you. It's a pretty good strategy. Again, not being afraid of pissing off the whammon, right? Now, here's the problem. Guys don't have frame. So when you say this stuff, that's the point. The point is to get you to enforce your own boundaries and stand up for yourself. But I think I had a Mids Watch just came out. Men with no frame and what they do. Great post by One More Please on it. Men with no frame here focus on the single mom. Oh, well, single moms are bad this and single moms are bad that. Let's go watch Donovan Sharp yell at a single mom for 20 minutes. It's like, dude, you're missing the point. Like, I just tried telling you a story of like an amazing epiphany to help you out through your life and the reason why things are happening. And you're so focused on the single mom aspect, you forgot the you aspect of it, which is the only part that counts. And that's when you got to learn, okay, so how do I enforce boundaries in that? And that's kind of how the red pill got rolling at this point. Everybody started writing books. There was, I believe the year before is when Franco and David Clare did Practical Female Psychology, which I would consider canon in the red pill sphere, even though it came out a year earlier. Not the point, though. So it's, how do you stand up for yourself? And I know it's a very simple question, and most people are like, dude, just stand up for yourself. It's like that when they made fun of pickups guys, where they were just like, just go talk to girls, bro. And then there's that meme that follows it, where like, how to draw an owl. Well, first draw 2 circles, and then draw the rest of the fucking owl. It's like it kind of skips over all the parts. If a guy has no experience, and he has this eggshell mentality, then you got to kind of walk him through it step by step. Guys love systemized step-by-step patterns. And that was the thing for boundaries. Okay, and that's where Dr. Robert Glover, who actually before this had a great book on it, and that's why when I say No More Mr. Nice Guy took off. Because he saw this in his practice. So he'd been seeing it peripherally. Nothing to do with red pill. He still doesn't know what red pill was. He's met me. He's met Rolo. He's like, all right, as long as you guys are working for it, that's great. I'm going back to Mexico. Get drunk with my wife. All right, fair enough. And he was learning the same thing. Guys walking on eggshells, afraid of their wives' emotions and how to deal with it. And this is something that they call convergent evidence. If you guys don't know what that means, most people think of science as in like, guy writes a research paper, he did the studies, this is now canon. It's authoritative, people reference it, they add to it. And then science is like this leveled attempt. Not necessarily. I don't know if you know this, but people are pretty complex and you can't study this stuff very accurately. But because every social science has flaws in their studies, sometimes major flaws. That's why we have a replication crisis. These things are too difficult to model the way we have. But what we can do is, let's say an evolutionary psychologist runs some experiment, finds a phenomenon. In this case, let's just say standing up for yourself is the only way your wife can respect, admire, and lust and love you. However they want to frame it. And it kind of leads to there, but like we're not very confident with the results. And then let's say some clinical psychologists find something that's very similar. It's, it turns out standing up for yourself is a great thing. Marriage counselors figured out, a couple pickup artists, and then some mechanics in, buttfuck Idaho figured that out too. Everybody's kind of leaning towards it, but nobody individually is very confident about it. But together, they have what's called convergent evidence. And this is, again, what is the red pill? The red pill is the idea of a very fast and loose scientific approach to dating, to relationships, to sex, to whatever. To the point, and then convergent evidence is treated higher than rigor. Like if you had, like it's a praxeology. It's not an ideology. It's not a science, but it's high on replication, low on rigor. No lab coats, no research requirements, no ethics boards, but hey, if you can repeat it for yourself, that's fine. So that's when you see a guy make a reference to a study, know that either he's a lying asshole or you know that it's something he's applied in his own life, and then, okay, this kind of makes sense. And then he goes and finds, this guy also found it. So he's pointing to other elements of this convergent experience. And you can say, it's just cherry picking. It's like, cherry picking for the stuff that worked. I don't know what to tell you. If you can't be somewhat discerning about things that are useful in your life, like I got nothing for you at this point. And that's probably why he calls it a delusion, like an epidemic of blue pill delusion. And that's why there's nothing fancy about, like, there's no blue pill. It's not like a canonized set of, like, this is how your blue pill. It's essentially, red pill is using observation about your life and not adopting older mental models that don't work in the current environment. Blue pill is everything else. So it's like a catch-all phrase. It's like being an atheist. All an atheist means is you're not religious. It's not an identity. So it's kind of neat. I would suggest you guys give it a read. I'm going to put it in the comments. I figure you guys will enjoy this one. But damn. So, that's what the red pill is. I'm going to take a quick break. Make a quick note. Oh, where'd it go? There she is. 3, 2, 25. How you guys doing in the chat? Look at that. 130 people, 35 likes. Come on, people. Like I said, if you enjoy the content, hit like, subscribe. I know you guys will. Again, your time and your attention, I hold it with some reverence. You guys are giving it to me, especially on what's Saturday morning. Probably the biggest reason why the view counts are so low is because it's on so damn early. And if any self-respecting single man trying to get laid is up at 9 o'clock on a Sunday, then I don't know what to tell you. You can watch it later, though. There we go. Nice, super busy. So here's the next part. Moving on to the next topic here. What's that? 27 minutes. What's the next topic? Funny you ask. So from Purarchy to pill. What the hell is that? What the hell's a Purarchy? So here's the next thing. Did you know, back when I was working with that guy in Florida doing that nonsense with Rollo and them, I met a whole bunch of people. Purarchy to red pill. Met Jack Donovan, met Jack Murphy, AJ Cortez, Ed Lattimore, Goldman, whole bunch of guys. You can see the list if you want to. Joe Navarro, whole bunch of guys. And I remember everybody was like all excited. Wow, this red pill thing is great. Wow, holy cow, Rollo, you wrote a book? And it was just funny. We're like, okay, so this is the first red pill conference. And like, with the exception of Rollo, Rich, and myself, nobody has any idea what the hell red pill is, but they're eager to learn. So I'm like, oh, it's awesome. Actually, Tanner, I'm pretty sure, was pretty knowledgeable about it. Ed also. So I should be fair there. And they kind of live their life to it. So again, the whole point is not shitting on it. But then I remember at one point, Jack Murphy looked over at me and he's like, man, you know what? I should write a book on the history of the sphere and all these guys doing all these things. And I looked over, I'm like, are you talking about like the book Manosphere by Ian Ironwood? He goes, what? I'm like, yeah, he already wrote it a couple of years back. Oh, okay. So that idea kind of died on the vine. Never did look into it. I don't think anybody looked into it. I don't think anybody knows the book. Did you guys know this? There is a history of the sphere. It's called Manosphere with an exclamation mark. It's written by a guy called Ian Ironwood. And if you ever wondered about all these goofy little like sub niches of guys doing their thing, you pretty much go there. All this stuff we talk about now, it's not new. I don't remember when he wrote, actually, when did he write this book? One second, let me pull it up. When is the publishing date? 2012, 2013. So just prior to, I think like Rational Male might have come out the same year. Or no, the year before. So it's absolutely funny. And he brings up a bunch of people. The fall of masculine interests, Christian and traditional conservatives, the rise of feminism, men's rights activists, wise old men, alpha dads, pickup artists, men going their own way, the Purarchy, old married guys in the future. And you're like, what the hell is all that stuff you're talking about? Yeah, it turns out there was a lot of like, you know what you see today. There's a lot of proto stuff for it. It was really kind of interesting. And I kind of, another ad for a video I did. I did a video, I think it's the pinned one on my channel, about why you need game. And I brought it up, like in the 60s, there was those jet setter Playboy types. And in the 70s, there was like the leisure suit guys. 80s kind of died off. But then the 90s, it came back with the pickup artists. They took like Nintendo sensibilities and added it to 1960s jet setters. And like, oh, that was kind of cool. Adam, I see your super chat. I'll get to that in just a second. That's kind of cool. And then they started doing their thing. So pickup artist is kind of where it all started. And then you saw Tradcon dads. Those are the guys that want to bring back traditional conservatism. It's always about returning to what was old. But the problem is they never really did, because they didn't know what old stuff was like. Like, dude, I'm telling you right now, when it comes to like a traditional conservative lifestyle, I'm probably as close as you're going to find to somebody who actually lived it. Like, my grandfather was a preacher, raised on a farm. He had a Chevy truck from the 1960s, looked brand new. Not because it was new, but because he only ever drove it to church, where he wore his suit. We did like the thing when everybody came over to help with the farming. My grandmother would make like a giant corn dinner for everybody, like that kind of stuff. 20 aunts and uncles, huge family, living in a small town in nowhere, Alberta. Great grandmother came to Canada through like the Underground Railroad. It's a crazy story, but that's the point. They're very traditional. And the one thing I found is that they are anything but conservative. Every family gathering we would have, half the people would have new wives, new husbands. Uncle Odie would always have a new car too, so it was always like a new car and a new wife every reunion. It was just weird. Like, even my grandmother, wonderful woman, it was her third husband. Turns out she got widowed twice, so I guess back then guys weren't exactly as robust as they are now. And then she ended up with a very, very kind pastor, Romeo. Name was Romeo. Anything but. Very kind man. You could tell it was like the Beta Books thing. They called themselves like mom and dad. It was crazy. Anyways, their life was nothing like you see in like the Tradcon fantasies. In fact, the Tradcon fantasy, all you see is cigarette ads, where like they're talking about a guy with a shotgun grilling with his family sitting there doting behind him. I'm like, that's never been a thing, man. In that picture, the guy with the gun has his wife berating him in the background, probably cheating on him, and the kids are probably going to fight him when he turns 18. So before we get to the next part of this one, I'm going to give you a little like quick history synopsis. We're going to get to the super chat. I see Adam here with the $5 super chat. Off topic. What's the optimal number of plates one should spin with minimal impact on success? Is it normal that 80% of the women are unattractive to me? What the hell, dude? Like, what is optimal? What does that even mean? Optimal for what? Like, here, I'll put it this way. A lot of guys use these, like, container words that you're supposed to fill it up with your emotions. What's the optimal number of plates? Minimal impact on success. I don't know what that even means. Like, what's success? What's success to you? I'm assuming, let's use money. If you just said, will I still be able to earn X amount of dollars per year while spinning plates? To which my answer would be yes or no. Because that's an answer you can give. But what's minimal impact on success? What does success even mean? Does success mean you have a job and you have to work X amount of hours and you need to get your night's sleep? So how many plates can you hold with that? Well, if you knew the goal, you'd probably already know your answer. And this isn't to shit on you. This is to help frame as a question that you can actually probably answer for yourself. So what is success? Be specific. Are you at the gym? Are you on a lifting routine right now? That means you got to get your 8 hours of sleep. You got to hit your 3-4 days a week. You got to do your 45 minutes in the thing. You got your meal times. You got your prepping. Like, you see what I mean? If success for you is like a weightlifting regimen and you have all these peripheral things surrounding it to make it like useful, then you already know the answer to that. Well, if I'm meal prepping this many hours, working out this many hours, making sure I sleep at this hours, yeah, if I go to the bar on a Friday night and get drunk and pick up a chick and get her as a plate, yeah, that's impeding my success for this specific activity. But you don't have to ask a guy what's optimal. You already know. What's optimal for you is picking up a girl in the middle of the day, having sex, not having it interfere with your sleep, and then if she wants you to go out and eat McDonald's with her, no. But you see what I mean? Like, if you have a goal, these how do I questions sort themselves out. And then optimal number of plates. I've seen everything from 1 to 8, people have said. The guys that say one, it's just like, I'm one of those guys. It's like one is usually enough for me. Two, if I have to. Like, I can do more, and if it's casually dating, that's fine. But like, once I started going investing things here, I'm just like, oh, it's just too much hassle. I'd rather just go home. Sorry, madam. That was always my joke. It's like, I'm never gonna leave you for another woman. I'm gonna leave you for no woman. Go full MGTOW. But you see what I mean? So what's optimal? How much time do you have in your day? How much free time do you have? How much time can you devote to girls? How much time do you want to devote to girls? If you're busy and you got like a day a week to yourself, then yeah, one plate's probably fine. Maybe two. But you have to know what you want. Because then how you get there becomes a much clearer path. Not only does it become a clearer path, but other guys can actually help you. Because you're not the first guy who's wanted to do this or do that. Like, everything you've wanted to do in your life, somebody's already done. I want to be good at entrepreneurship. Well, there's tons of guys who are entrepreneurs and love talking about it. They actually love entrepreneurship. Rich made a whole channel. He's been talking about it for years. All he does is drive cars and talk about it. Here's the point, though. He loves to talk about it to people that aren't wasting his time. This is just an example. You can map it to just about anything. So if you show, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a specific goal, I want to make, twice the revenue I did last year. Like, the more work you've put in, the more likely it is other people don't see it as a waste of their time to offer insight into what they did. Not only that, but if you have a specific goal, they're able to say, oh, well, it's great, because if taxes are your issue, this is what I did to get around that. Just make sure you file, like, you can maximize like 80% of your blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So the answer to your question, what's the optimal number of plates one should spin with minimal impact to success, is define success, define minimal, and define optimal. Is it normal that 80% of women are unattractive to me? Well, I highly doubt that number is anything other than what you pulled out of your ass. Unless you have a spreadsheet of every girl you've approached and you like label her as attractive or unattractive. But I will say this, generally speaking, when a guy finds a girl unattractive, and they're perfectly normal, like if she's like a ham beast, obviously you're going to find her unattractive. I'm talking about normal girls, but you don't like them. That's generally a coping strategy. Guys will do that when a girl's not into them, or they're worried a girl's not into them. And so they kind of pre-reject. Wow, I would hit on her, but I don't really find her very attractive. To which I would say, I've heard of slump busters. You've heard of slump busters. Being attractive was never an issue before. All of a sudden, now it became a thing. Like, come on. But that's a guy to guy thing. Everybody guy likes bragging other guys. I only do 9s and 10s, bro. I only fuck top tier chicks that are virgins, but they only want me. It's like, okay. If you're going to try and impress me, that's fine, but you could have just bought me dinner. And that lets you know, does a guy actually want to get laid and be happy? Or does a guy want to impress assholes online? I would say, I don't know why you want to impress assholes online, because they will drive you to stupid behavior. Ask me how I know. I've seen some shit. Hold my beer. You know what I mean? Anyway, so back to what we're talking about here. Always problems beneath the surface, just swept under the rug. Absolutely. But again, why does her being unattractive matter? I think most guys have approach anxiety too. So imagine being unattractive. Like, the weight lifted off your shoulders. Oh, I can go talk to her. I don't find her very cute, but zero anxiety approaching her because I kind of don't want her. And so, worst case scenario, I have to say no, thank you. I have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever you want to say. Because I don't know, does telling a girl that you're gay actually turn them off anymore? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Social media ruins your brain. It's like the first advice I give to guys who approach anxiety. Start hitting on old girls. What? Yeah, older girls. Girls your mom's age. Just talk to them, make good conversation. Do everything except for try to sleep with them. They're like, why? It's like, because you don't want to sleep with them, so you don't got that stupidity in your head. Now, I guarantee, once one of those girls starts showing an interest, like those unattractive girls in your example, not the MILFs from mine, you probably start finding them more attractive. Nothing's more attractive than like a girl that sexually wants to take you down. And that's kind of where, and it's kind of leading into the topic here. So pickup artists, men going their own way. So you guys already know pickup. I mean, whatever. I talk about it a bunch. Just know it's like guys just wanted to know how to get laid. And so they practiced routines. They basically worked out a system to go from meeting somebody to sleeping with them. How do you start a conversation with somebody? How do you carry on a conversation? How do you let them know that you want to have sex with them without it being weird and cringy? How do you get them to the bedroom? How do you, like, everything short of this is how you thrust. If you don't know that, you're on your own. Those guys ended up having some success. The problem is they had underlying issues. Y'all know the story of Mystery. He's I think it was like depressive episodes. He ended up thinking it was just parlor tricks, and then when he ended up settling down with a girl, he screwed everything up. Neil Strauss, you can see the same thing with him. Kind of beside the point here. The point is, so those guys kind of started moving on with their lives. You can't do pickup forever. If you're still online 10 years later talking about I've devoted my life to the pursuit of sleeping with as many women as possible, it's like, I don't know what to tell you, guy. I try not to be a one-trick pony, but you do you. Then MGTOW, men going their own way. And this was the answer to the question. Well, it was one of the answers to the question I ask all the time with girls, where I say, feminism had 3 generations to define what it means to be a man in modern times, and have fucked up every sense of the word. So stand aside, we got it from here. It's one of the solutions that guys came up with. It used to be that being a man meant you prepared yourself for a lifetime of work. You went to college, learned a trade, got out of high school, and just started working somewhere, married a girl, had a family, took care of them. People liked that. They didn't like it because it was easy. They liked it because it was a narrative they could latch onto. You are the dutiful plow horse that works diligently to save all these people. They're responsible for you, or you're responsible for them, and they show you gratitude. Used to work great back when sustenance farming was the only thing you could do. But then women started earning money, and they're like, well, I don't really need it anymore, so I don't care. So the MGTOW guys were the ones that came out of pickup, and they were kind of jaded with it, because it's the one thing you'll learn. Guys who tend to have gotten around, had their share of women, they're not jaded to women, but they have a loss of that childlike innocence. Like, you know what I mean? When you watched a movie as a kid, oh, it was amazing, wizards flying, and you watch wrestling with your brother, and then you guys fight on the lawn. Like, you really got into it. You got into the narrative structure. They call it kayfabe. I get it. It's just watching Superman, but now I'm Superman, and like, you buy into the thing, and it's just magical. And then as an adult, you watch it, and you're like, I don't get it. It's just some CG shit. That's kind of what happens there. You realize women aren't these magical sex creatures that smell like cherries and they shower every day, and to quote Pat Stedman, why I love women bullshit. You actually grow up and you realize, oh, they're just the same stupid meatbags that the guys at work are. The only difference is these ones are more fun on a Friday night for a couple hours. You know what I mean? And a lot of guys realized, okay, so they kind of got jaded with that. And one of the routes they went was like, I'm going to go my own way. It's like, why would I get married? What's the point? My parents' divorce was absolutely brutal. My dad got turned into a shell of a man. My mom told me for 15 years that he was an asshole. And then I finally met him when I was 20. And it turns out he was fighting his entire life to try and have time in my life, but she weaponized me against him. It's like, why would I sign up for that? Why would I get married? It's like, if you want to make a case for why men should get married, go talk to everybody's mom who left dad. You're like 30 years too late for that. And so they didn't like a lot of like the traditional markers of like a useful masculinity that way, like a productive plow horsey masculinity. The cowboy kind of caught on. That's why Goldman wears that damn hat, I'm pretty sure. So they realized, like, I don't get it. None of these things that people told me I need to do are going to work for me. So I got to do my own thing. And they branched out kind of all kinds of things. This is like what I would call like first wave MGTOW. A little chuckle there for the feminists. Yeah, they had a first wave. The second wave is kind of like sour grapes men going their own way. I've never slept with girls, but I don't want none of this. You're like, all right, fair enough. So they latched on to independence. And here's a fun fact for you. So in the same way I've talked about Hawaiian libertarian as the first MGTOW thing on here, I'm going to talk about the first MGTOW. I see the super chat. I'll get to it in just a second. The first MGTOW is this. I cannot find his blog. It was called Freedom 25. If anybody else can find it, you let me know. Freedom 25. The 21st Century Man's Guide to Life. Paperback, November 25th, 2011. This is a kid who realized in his 20s that, yeah, the corporate job, find a wife, settle down, it's not going to happen. He slept around, had his fun with women. He realized they're not wanting it. I don't want it. It's not going to work for me. I'm going to go live life on my terms. He eventually went to he literally went his own way back when that meant something. He just checked out. He had fun with girls. He never bothered getting married. I think he went and moved to an island. Just surfed all day. Enjoyed himself, right? Excuse me. Talks about finance and dating and career and productivity and finding meaning. It's actually kind of an interesting book. I've read it so long ago, I cannot remember anything about it, so I have to get it again. In fact, I might just get that now. $99 for a paperback. Look at these assholes. Oh, wow, there's not a Kindle version. Fair enough. So that guy was the original MGTOW. Fun fact. Actually, put a pause on that. Let's get this super chat. So did you know the tool Red Pill works in India only if it kind of diluted? I know it's out of context, but take it as a field report. Oh yeah, no worries, man. You're not the first guy to say this. There's a few Southeast Asian guys in my Patreon community. And then one guy talked about that during COVID. He had to go back to his family, and very simple things, pre-selection and dread, just worked there. And he's like, oh man, I finally believe what you're talking about. How do I do this back here? I'm like, oh, it's the same thing, but that's beside the point. Yeah, so he was the first MGTOW. And then you got guys like Aaron Clary was another example of it. And it sounded pretty interesting. Of course, then a lot of guys latched onto it because, as with anything, starts as tragedy, ends up as farce. The next kind of guys just saw this checking out part, like guys who did their things, wasn't working for me, and then they checked out and they go, well, why do I have to waste my time trying and failing? I can just check out before all this starts. And they kind of miss the point. And Ian actually has a great quote on this in his book, even though this was before that second wave MGTOW of men who were sent their own way and crying about it. You know, whammon ain't shit types. But even when challenge and mission have failed, there is dignity to be gleaned for men. To do your utmost and fail is not a masculine sin. To fail to do your utmost is. Either way, the mark of an authentic masculinity is the unwillingness to blame others for the failure. So while you consider the idea of a man who has checked out of societal expectations as a failure, you can be certain that the men in question don't consider it as such. Sounds very noble, right? But that's the point, to try and fail. I'm not saying go try to have a wife and kids, and then if that doesn't work, then go MGTOW. What I'm saying is, if you haven't enjoyed the path and failed and then moved on to something else and succeeded, you probably aren't doing enough. You're probably just hiding from the world. And that was kind of an annoying thing. Anyway, it's a very good line. And then the second line, and I'll end on this one for this. And I actually absolutely just love this. He talks about like a lot of the flack that MGTOWs get. And granted, I give a lot of it myself, because the kind of guy who actually went his own way isn't worried that some guy online is calling him whatever. Like, you should be used to that by now. So the only people it attracts are the ones that are insecure about it. And those are the specific ones I'm talking about anyway. It's perfect. He says, MGTOW has sometimes been described by its detractors as a lot like lesbian separatism, but for straight dudes. In some forms, it's a denial and rebuke of Western consumer culture. Many MGTOW refuse to date Western women. Some try to avoid women altogether. And that's where he kind of talks more about the Freedom 25 guy. And so I think it's a good read. Anyways. So that was one way they went with it. I'm just going to go do my own thing. Go where I'm treated best. The next one is a group called Purarchy. If you guys have never seen or heard of that, I'm not surprised. A good example of that. Hold on a sec. I got to pull this up. Pull up my notes. So, for those who are new to the term, it's a term of art used to describe the phenomenon mostly called extended adolescence. So, if you were to think about this, I would probably use examples of like guys who are doing pickup now, and they're like in their mid-30s, and they started in their 20s, and they're like, yeah, I've devoted the last 15 years of my life to slaying poon in this third world country. Pretty much Purarchy. It's like Greek for like pure childhood, I think it is. Spent a decade getting high, drunk, laid, wiped out from video game exhaustion, porn marathons instead of applying those to the grindstone, getting an education, allow them to support their future ex-wives. That was it. They're like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to grow up and do grown-up shit. Grown-up shit sucks. There's like articles like Bros Over Homes, where a lot of girls are pissed off that all the good men, and she is an example of like a pharmacist earning $150,000 a year, still lives with his parents. She goes, I don't care. I go traveling. I don't need this shit. I'm not going to buy a house. I'm not going to settle down with that 28-year-old with the bags under her eyes. Fuck that. And that kind of leads into like the where have all the good men gone. And to be fair, like I would put guys like turd flinging monkey in here, because he's just doing his own degenerate thing. He doesn't care. I think Troy's a good example of it too. Yeah. They make the case that when feminism is the primary social force in our society, guys just do this. They just check out. There's like a herbivore men thing. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a an experiment with mice where they give them everything they could ever need, except for limited space. And eventually a bunch of the mice turn into like herbivores. All they do is they preen themselves, and they don't even talk to girls in that. It's kind of a weird structural thing. Off of that though, Sam, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Was Van Gogh a loser or a MGTOW in his day? Well, here, I'll put it this way. You guys already know exactly the talking points I use, man. You're just setting me up for these things, I swear. So Van Gogh and Gauguin were part of the Expressionist era. If you guys don't know, that came right after the Impressionism, which was more like trying to use painting as a snapshot photography. Expressionism was trying to encapsulate a feeling as opposed to encapsulating a visual. Van Gogh fell in love with a prostitute, went crazy, chopped off his ear to prove his love to her. That's the prevalent story. Super popular for it. Yeah, basically a bit of a simp. Gauguin, on the other hand, decided, I'm out of here. He moved to, I want to say French Polynesia, maybe Fiji, some island, and he's just like, you know what? Age of consent here is 14. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life doing the on my own personal Epstein Island. Painted a bunch of paintings about Hawaiian island girls. So you tell me, between the two of those, let me know in the comments what you think. Between MGTOW, Purarchy, and just plain old-fashioned loser, how you would consider Van Gogh and Gauguin. It's kind of funny. The fun thing about this too, and this is like the Gen Xers will love this, he has to try and pinpoint a particular cultural movement in the birthplace of Purarchy, and he picks the 1979 movie Porky's, which if you haven't seen it, it's part of like the 80s revival of like romp. I didn't want to call them like comedy porn. I don't know how else to describe it. Porky's is just about a guy who wants to get laid. Like Animal House was another example. Old School with Will Ferrell. PCU with the guy from Entourage. Jeremy Piven. What's some other examples? Police Academy, Ski School, Ski Patrol. All these ones. It was always just about guys, jocks versus nerds. Revenge of the Nerds is another good example. Hey, let's just get laid and have fun. Let's piss off the commandant. Like all that shit. Very fun time, by the way. Not politically correct at all. At all. Like Police Academy is a great example. If you ever see guys like, I think Rob's in the chat, if you ever see him mention stuff like the Blue Oyster Cult, what they did there is, as a prank, the guy from Police Academy told the rival gang, the jocks, that they were having a get-together at a place called the Blue Oyster. And they went over there to kind of crash the party and get Mahoney in trouble, but he accidentally took him to a gay bar instead. And so they'd get in there, and then the gay guys kidnapped them, and that was the joke. It's funnier to look at than to describe, but you try and put something like that out today, Alphabet Mafia is going to have your balls in a vice, man. But that was just it. Yeah. Everything about just having fun. And there's the reason I'm kind of mentioning all this peripheral shit here too, by the way, and I'm getting to that point shortly. So you get this MGTOW thing. The traditional pillars of masculinity were useful for a time. They're not useful today, and so I'm going to shed them and do something that I find personally fulfilling, regardless of how it's seen writ large. It's like a masculinity thing. You get these guys, which are like, you know what? If everybody wants feminists to win, let them win. I'm going to sit here and have fun, spend the next 15 years basically wasting away as a full degenerate. Pick up guys who are like, I want to sleep with as many women as possible. Now, all of them had a point. They all had a little bit of a point, but they never quite hit on it all. And this is kind of the void red pill has come to fill, where they realize, as the traditional Greek proverb, nothing too much. Like if you focused on just being MGTOW your whole life, you're going to end up that beach bum who's in his 50s with nothing to show for it. If you end up only Purarchy, you're just going to end up as the guy who's like Tom Hanks and Big. If you end up just doing the TradCon thing, you're going to end up being like a horrible plow horse. You'll live in an empire and pay half of it to your wife. So from Red Pill perspective, they kind of took the things that worked. Well, this works. The idea of, having fun, let it burn. It's not my problem to fix. They wanted feminists to win. They win it. That stuff was great. So they took the fun, enjoyable part of Purarchy. That's why I can sit here and have like a Minecraft stream on the second channel. Go check it out. Links in the description. But at the same time, talk seriously about sexual dynamics here and do what I have to do productively. It's because I didn't adopt all of it. Using me as an example here. You adopt the parts that work. The part that make me more than just a plow horse in, the people's life around me, which is great. Then you find out you get treated better. You're the fun guy. You take a little bit of MGTOW. There's some parts that don't work for me. The military, once it stopped working for me, I left. I went my own way. When the corporate world stopped working for me, I left. Went my own way. And now at some point, the manosphere and writing and doing these goofy videos and podcasts doesn't work for me. Well, I'll leave this too and go my own way. Great. But then if you start like treating women as like evil things and you join the He-Man Women Haters Club, the issue's not that you're wrong. It's not wrong. Your logic is fine, but your logic isn't truth. Your logic is a persuasive technique to convince people of the decision you made from an emotional place. So yeah, we're a social species, and if your own way involves eschewing other people, you're essentially denying what makes you human. And then obviously with the TradCon thing, the ability to work hard when you need to work hard is... So a good example I use on this is, so I went to college twice. The first time, university, was right after high school. That's where I got my graphic design degree with art history. C+ student at best. Then my second degree in business and IT management was when I was in the military. A+ student. Wow, what changed? Well, what changed is I had to scrub 1,000 toilets first. But once you do that, you have a work ethic, right? So that part of the TradCon thing actually works well. The idea of working hard to achieve your goals, right? But so we took a little bits of these things, and it's all kind of encapsulated into the Red Pill. That's why it's not even a thing. It's just a collection of tools. It's a praxeology. And everybody here, there was a lot of guys that fucked up their lives horribly. Like Roosh, I would argue completely fucked up his life. In fact, I'm pretty sure Ian talks about him in here as if he's a MGTOW, not red-pilled at all, which is funny because people consider Royce, Roosh, and Rollo to be the 3 R's of the Red Pill, like the 3 initial thought leaders. I wish there was a better word for it, but fuck, whatever. So that's kind of fun. So that's your history lesson. That is part 2. Where's my notes? Give me my notes, sir. Anyways, boys. Oh yeah, regression of the mean. That's going to be fun. I'm going to take a second here, chat with you guys, and then we'll get back to that. Oh, there's my thing. 58. You're going to love regression of the mean. I just spent like an hour building this shit up, and I'm going to tear it down in the next 30 minutes. More cowbell. Dude, I like you guys in the chat, by the way. So far in this cast, I've only had to like block one guy from the channel. I know, it's very weird. He's been following me in all the channels, just making fun of whatever views I get. He laughed that I only had 19, but now we got 219 of you guys, of which half of you actually like the cast. So for the half of you that like it, thank you very much. For the other half that don't, well, I'm sure I'll win you over soon. Once I start talking about how shitty men are, I'm sure you'll love it. Anyways. So what do we do so far? Well, I explained why the manosphere isn't really a term at all. It's just something that was used to mock us that guys adopted because it was catchy. I explained what the Red Pill was. It was former pickup artists realized that MGTOW wasn't working, Purarchy wasn't working, TradCon wasn't working, pickup wasn't working, and so they just adopted parts of it, and they just decided to carve out a good life out of it. And what does a good life mean? Well, it's the same, and I really got to thank the super chat from Adam, Hatim, anyways, where he asked, like, how do I optimize plates? And that was like the perfect example of a Red Pill answer versus a Red Pill trademark business brand answer. I guarantee you, had you gone on to anybody else's podcast who brags about how awesome they are, they would have told you, dude, if you're not sleeping with 50 chicks by 30, if you're not If you're not spinning at least 4 plates, then you're not a man. You just go start a shotgun. It's like, well, how is that helpful? How does this arbitrary list of numbers help anybody? I'll tell you it doesn't, and I'll tell you why it doesn't. It's because they're doing what's called a categorical imperative. By the way, huge shout out to Chesty in the chat. This whole show idea was his idea. He had a post. I can't remember where his tweet is. If he has the wherewithal to find it, he could post it in here. Where he's like, I just found another, I want to use like an R word against all you guys in here. And I'm like, oh, he's going to start throwing out the gamer words. And he goes remedial. And I'm like, God damn, that was clever. Why didn't I think of that? And then that's because, he's the clever one. But yeah, it's like most guys are sitting here talking about red pill, this and that, have no fucking idea what they're talking about. It's a Dunning-Kruger convention, and Dunning didn't show up. Kruger's here, though. Caleb, I see your things. You're one of my biggest influencers to let go of my anger. I have fantastic memories of listening to your videos when I was in Denver for the summer in 2019. Well, thank you, brother. Like I said, anger has a purpose. Anger isn't a permanent state, or it shouldn't be. Anger is there for 2 reasons. Actually, this is good. I want to make a little segue here just for anger phase. I talk about this one a bunch, but whatever. We'll talk about it again. So anger is the only social emotion that exists. And what does that mean? Well, that means it requires a social element to it. I'll use an example here. If I stub my toe, I may be hurt. I may be pissed off, whatever. I'm not angry. If you stub my toe on purpose, then I get angry. Because there's the pain, which is required, and then the social element of you actively aggrieving me. And that's anger. That's your wife leaves you for another man. O.J. Simpson got angry. O.J. Simpson got angry. Guys whose wife wouldn't sleep with them, when they get turned into like bitter, hateful misogynists, go MGTOW, they're angry. And there's a reason for the anger. Now, I'm not going to say fault or blame here. That's not what I'm talking about. The brain doesn't think that way. Only your childishness thinks that way. That bitch ex-wife did this, that, and thing. Fuck that bitch. You get angry. Now, what is the purpose of anger from a biological perspective? Whatever. You put the word in there that you need. Whatever adjective fits. Your brain is used to getting in a rut because it's cognitively efficient. Your brain uses like 1/4 of the energy your body needs. Sometimes more, sometimes less. That's an IQ joke for you guys. And then it focuses on staying in that rut. Look, the way I'm running things here, body, is good enough. It's not perfect, but you're not going to starve. So just shut up and do what I say. And your body's like, fine. Then something happens that creates that fight or flight response with the social aspect of it too, called anger. And then your brain, in what is called neuroplasticity, decides, holy shit. All right, guys, something dangerous has happened. My tools don't work. Give me all the energy. I'll figure this shit out. Don't worry, I got this. And your body's like, fine, here. Then your brain tries to readapt to your situation because you've had like a very strong incentive to do so. And that's increasing what they call neuroplasticity or decreasing it. Whichever one makes you more able to understand things. So that's the other purpose of anger. The other purpose of anger is letting people know. A guy being angry sends a strong signal to those around him saying, I don't like this, and you better fix it, or this anger is going to turn to violence, right? From caveman days, that's what happened. That's why girls love to say, look, we should just be friends. They literally say that because in caveman days, if you dumped a guy, there was a good chance he would hit you in the head with a rock. So you had to be friends first and make him feel better about it so he wouldn't hit you in the head with a rock. And even though now, we don't hit women in the head with rocks, but their brain doesn't know the difference. They're still thinking in caveman DNA. They're not thinking in like sophisticated civil engineering brain. And so their first instinct is to try and pacify you so that way they don't get hurt. It's not true, but whatever. You can't argue feelings, right? Feelings don't care about your facts. But put that aside, because we've essentially made a society, made a world where solving problems with your man tools is frowned upon. And I can't argue that. Using rocks and cudgels to solve our problems seems a little unsophisticated, and not gonna lie, my shirts are too nice for me to get into a fight every time somebody wrongs me. So we have to use the other tools. And this is where we kind of have to rise above our biology. So the neuroplasticity is the thing. So then what do you do? Okay, well, Mental models, which I talk about all the time, are a case of your brain creating narrative structures that it anchors to when making decisions. Christianity is a great, deep narrative full of mental models. What would Jesus do is a mental model. If you're in a situation you don't know what to do, you think to yourself, what would Jesus do? And then you do that. That's an example of a mental model. So from Red Pill perspective, and this is because a lot of the stuff we did was taken from Evo Psych, is where they kind of understand these concepts. Jeff Miller's The Mating Mind, a great example of a book if you want to look more into it. So you take this anger and you adopt new mental models and you get some successes under your belt, and that creates a feedback loop. I adopt this one. Like what I said very early on in that first Hawaiian libertarian post about standing up for yourself is the only way to get respect from women, right? So like all I have is my balls and I don't bust them for nobody. That thing. That's a mental model. Then when you end up in a fight where the girl starts getting sad and emotional, do you buckle? Do you cower? Are you afraid of her emotions? Do you stop talking to her? No, I just tell her the paint color I like, and then like whatever, she can get mad if she wants to. I'm over it. But you see that though? That simple mental model there prevents you from having like an adversarial nature with your girl at home. And it works. And then when it works, your brain slowly starts to walk away from the fight or flight response, and so the anger subsides, and you've used the anger properly. You've used the anger to adjust your life to be more beneficial towards you. And that's the purpose of anger. And that's why I really hate when I hear most groups, men or women, essentially telling a guy to stop being angry. Stop that. That's like telling the guy who's filling up his car, stop filling up your car with gas. You're like, well, I got to go to the beach. Stop filling up your car with gas. It's mean. Guys stop filling their car up with gas and they wonder why they never make it to the beach. It's a purpose, man. Anyways. Back to the topic at hand. What the hell was this one? Oh, regression of the mean. So I like this one because it's like whatever. Men can create anything that they want to, but men can also screw it up pretty easily. And that's what we've received here. This is the Redditor in me that's going to talk about this one. So regression to the mean is the idea that as you add numbers to any system, it will eventually coalesce around the average. So if you put a bunch of people in a room, super high IQ, you keep adding more and more people, you're going to get stupid people, you're going to get smart people, but eventually your room's going to stabilize at about an average IQ of 180. Or 100, sorry. Bodybuilding. Anything you do that has variance in it, if you put enough people into a room, it'll eventually become the mean. Or sorry, the mean is like the midpoint between more or less. So 50% of the people are higher, 50% of the people are lower. That happens with this place as much as any, the Red Pill space. So it was originally a dozen blogs by a dozen guys. There was Keone Galt, there was Rollo Tomasi, there was Royce in DC, there was Roosh V forums, there was Ian Ironwood's Red Pill Room, there was Athel K's Married Man Sex Life Primer forums, like maybe a dozen places. I probably missed one or two, but bear with me here. Highly interested people, highly invested people, highly capable people, by whatever metrics make you good in this space, whatever. And then Reddit happened, and there was the Red Pilled subreddit, and there was the Married Red Pilled subreddit. And then there was like a dozen ex-Red Pill, hate Red Pill, Blue Pill subreddits of people just shitting on us, whatever. And as more people got involved, the structure slowly went down. And that's why it's like a common meme where guys are like, man, I miss this place back in insert the first year they joined. It was so much better then, and it's been shitty ever since. There's really two situations that caused that. The first is when you were new, everything was novel and everybody was smarter than you. And so you felt like you were in a room where you were learning from your betters all the time. You learn your way around things, you kind of figure it out, maybe even contribute your own pieces that are really profound and useful. Now all of a sudden, somebody telling you about a simple shit test, you're like, dude, you guys are there still? Like, come on. And then they forget that there's a churn. There's always a brand new set of angry guys who don't know what a shit test is every time you come into a space. So yeah, it's generally going to have like a very remedial first level quality to it. The second thing, and this is the part that sucks, is regression to the mean. And that's where you ended up with all kinds of situations. This is where you ended up with guys who would ask, like, how could I get flair on a subreddit? And you're like, dude, it's not for you. It's so the audience can know who's an idiot and who's not. Like, yeah, but I want to be one of the cool kids. Well, like, do cool shit. I don't know what to tell you. And then eventually, it even got so bad at one point, the Red Pill ended up getting a moderator who was like a verified incel. I don't know how it happened. It was before my time. He didn't last long, but he still got in there, right? And then you always wonder these cases where, how do these male clubs always get like female invasions and girls take it over from the inside? It's like, it's not just that. It's that guys, we seem to not gatekeep as well as we used to, or we're missing something about that, or we don't know how. I don't know. Or maybe it's the fact that we take that as a calculated risk and it eventually bites us in the ass. I'm not here to say why. I just know it does happen. And then as more guys get in, eventually enough guys with like a room temperature qualification get in that they twist things. And this is what you notice. A lot of guys that were doing like the TradCon stuff, back to the history thing, the Purarchy, the MGTOW, they were very dissatisfied with their place because they also had their own regression of the mean, and they were also only like a part of the puzzle. So they were already kind of structurally flawed to begin with. So you get structural flaws mixed with a bunch of guys coming in, diluting the place and turning it into shit. They're like, oh, well, this high effort, intensity, successful place, Red Pill, let's go in there. And that seems like a much better group of guys. And then they go in there, and it's just like California people moving to Texas and then voting California law in there. And they're like, well, and you saw this. It was like Jordan Peterson was a dark time for the Red Pill, man. Like, I like the guy. Talked to him a few times. He actually helped me understand how to be a better writer, so I always thank him for that. But like, fuck, man, as soon as clean your room became a thing, 500 guys with their field reports of, hey, I didn't sleep with a girl, I never touched a girl, I never fixed my life, my room is clean, and like pat me on the back. And we eventually had to get to the point where we had to put out like why Jordan Peterson's an asshole hit pieces, like a very provocative title. But then the whole post was basically saying Peterson's great, but people that are following him like a dad are idiots. And then everybody would start defending Peterson in the comments, and then you kind of had a filtering mechanism there. Like, all right, so everybody who can't read and is standing for another man, we can just boot him out. Trump, another great example. A lot of guys were like, you know who's great? Trump, alpha male. And we're like, all right, you too, buddy. Don't really care. Most of us aren't even American. And I'm not going to dick ride a man. At least if you're going to simp for a girl. Because there's a better chance that you're going to sleep with a girl than you're going to sleep with Trump. I'm just saying. Flip tables and slap cheeks. The other cheeks. Yeah, and then the Purarchy guys, the ones that are like, why are you putting effort into any of this shit, man? Here's how you just have fun. And they all had they brought their flavors into there, which were already there. And that's the problem. And then you kind of get, again, regression of the mean. Everybody comes in, they try watering down the place, and it gets annoying. And I found there was more, and this is kind of like one of the big reasons that I'm doing this here, is that not to say that it was better before, but there was less, the signal to noise ratio was way better before. The problem is signal to noise gets drowned out over time. And so there's really value in seeing what happened 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? And then you guys can be looking at the original stuff and you're like, oh, okay, so now I understand. So I understand what it means to be MGTOW, and I don't have to listen to, brand of me giving YouTube PowerPoint presentations on how women ain't shit to be MGTOW. Or I guess Black Pill never even made the list on this one. It's way too new of a thing. But but a lot of guys look at Black Pill and they think they understand like Rollo Tomassi or Red Pill, and they're like, you don't understand shit. You listen to some neat in his bedroom bitching about how women ain't shit and all guys are evil pickup artists that just want to steal your money. It's like garbage in, garbage out, man. And I hate to say it, but guys are our own worst enemy. We branched out, we figured out a whole bunch of stuff. We eventually coalesced around something that was fairly useful, and now we're branching out again because most guys cannot handle being part of the solution. They want to be the savior, if that makes sense. And this is the part that drives me nuts the most. Easy example of this. So I always say when people ask me, like, how do you know this? How do you know that? Or any kind of compliment shit, whatever. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants, which is true. I didn't invent this stuff. I didn't master the shit test and have like a 5-page PowerPoint presentation on how it works. I didn't write The Rational Male. I didn't write Marcus Aurelius. Like any of the stuff that you say. I didn't do any of that stuff. But I read it all. I applied the stuff that worked and I shed the stuff that didn't. And then I added a little bit to it. It's always a little bit, right? Standing on the shoulders of giants. That's how things work. That's how lawyers work. Common law. Make a case for something. The judge finds it in the case there. And you've added to the body of work known as law. And then you got like yeah, I get it. Lawyers are assholes, but it is still like a nobler profession than you'd think. Like it's there. Like you hate lawyers, but when you need a lawyer, you like that lawyer. And that was kind of like the direction it could have gone. But then that's the problem, is that requires a level of humility, of checking your ego. And we have like a huge unhealthy narcissism epidemic right now, where it's not just enough that I'm part of this I'm not one author in the Library of Alexandria. I have to be Jesus Christ himself. And that's where you get guys like the Glow situation. If you guys don't know, he was a poster in the Red Pill who, even before everybody started to brand and do their thing, he just started to try and take it over, saying he was the biggest thing since sliced bread in there. He essentially shit on every other creator to the point that they just stopped contributing. You're like, I'm not going to come here and have a little Jewish kid throw anti-Semitic crap at me all day. Like, I got better things to do with my time. And so they just left. So now he's king of the fuck pile, but the fuck pile is just made of ashes. And he's not the only one. Anthony Johnson was another example of that. He was a guy who was like, I'm really good at throwing parties and inviting cool people together. But, and then he's like, this is the part where he went wrong. He's like, but I'm the best man in the world. And if you guys don't believe me, that's your fault. And so he just slandered everybody. Now nobody goes to his conventions. And now they're at 21Con 2 Electric Boogaloo, a.k.a. the Convention of Masculine Excellence, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I don't remember. Anyways. Where was I going off with this one? Oh, yeah. So it's like a bunch of like narcissists trying to become Jesus Christ. You can ignore that stuff. They don't know what they're doing. Just kind of pay attention to the guys that aren't in it. Like, you can always tell when some guy wants you to think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread or not. Don't focus so much on the guys who tell you how awesome they are. They're talking to you like a beta male tries to hit on a girl. Like, you don't sell on a person's quality by talking about features. You talk about what it can do for you. Biggest branding thing you ever learned, by the way. Pepsi figured this out. Talking about features sucks. Telling them how much better Pepsi tastes than Coke sucks. Telling them you're 20% less calories sucks. Android telling you that their phone has a 20% greater processor sucks. Nobody gives a shit about details. What they should have figured out is what Coke figured out. Coke was like, hey, we took everything that's great about America, about corporatism, about your nice life with a polar bear, and we put all those warm and fuzzy feelings into this small bottle. And we shaped it like a chick. So you can hint to yourself that you're picking up a girl and drinking out of her neck. And guys are like, oh, that's awesome. That feels great. iPhone figured out, I'll just show you how you can buy something that nobody else can afford other than everybody else. And you are now cool. You're not part of the system. You're outside of it. You're something different. You're unique. Just like you're a special snowflake, just like everybody else. And they lined up for years. And so when I see marketers talking about, dude, I'm fucking awesome. I did this. I did that. I did this. I did that. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Just so you know, I'm awesome. And did you know alpha means awesome, and I'm alpha and awesome. I think back to like, they're like the Samsung phone and the Pepsi Coke. Oh, hey, buddy. And they're like the Samsung phone of the Apple iPhone industry. They're trying to sell you on features instead of what the product tells for you, which is kind of annoying because even as a branding perspective, then I don't think it's ideal. It might get customers in the short term, but it's kind of not the point. The dog really requires some petting right now, so we have to take a break. Okay, now beat it. Stop putting your wet nose on my toes, dude. So yeah, regression of the mean. And that's kind of where we are now. Like, you guys are literally at this point in history where I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to do. Everybody's talking about how awesome they are and nobody's really awesome. It's like, yeah, well, like this, everything's basically there. The issue right now is putting it someplace and having people who almost study it like a syllabus, which sounds OCD and autistic, and it totally is. But I'll say this, I got nothing better to do with my time, so I'm perfectly happy to waste it doing this in between writing books and making videos. And as long as you guys take it and apply it, that's all that matters. Remember, way back in the earlier part of this cast, I talked about high replication. You have no idea who knows what they're talking about until you try replicating their stuff. How are you going to know in 10 years 1,000 girls is doable unless you go and sleep with girls for a year? Like, I'll tell you this much. Let's use that one example of the goofball who says he slept with 1,000 women in like 10 years. Try for 1 year to sleep with as many women as you can. I guarantee you it's nowhere near, what is it, 1,000 for 10? 100 women. Or maybe it is, but you're going to find you had to make sacrifices. Remember the optimal question earlier? Like, yeah. All right. So if maybe one of you guys, even Carl, I think he made it to like 50 in that 1 year. And he's like, that's all I did. And I'm fucking exhausted. I'm never doing that again. But then you'll realize what is the optimal number of plates. And you're going to find out, yeah, 1,000 over 10 years, not only is it not optimal, I don't think it's possible. Like, there was a month there where I wanted to go traveling. There was a week where I got sick. Like, just life logistics gets in the way of something stupid like that. But that's the point. Now that you've replicated stuff in your own life, okay, how many girls can you reasonably plate up at a single time? And then when you hear somebody make a claim like that, you look at it and you go, is that real or no? No, it's not real, because like, even if I did twice as much as I was doing already, I still would have never made it. And it's just unrealistic. Like, he's clearly lying. But that's how most people lie. Nobody ever tells you soft lies. It's always hard lies. Stolen valor guys, they never... If a guy who wanted to pretend to be in the military would just tell you he's like a master seaman supply tech, nobody would ever challenge him. But that's not what they do. Every guy is always like, I am Special Forces Battalion, Navy SEAL. I served with Jesse Ventura. I've got the Medal of whatever that hasn't been issued since 1947, and I was the first guy who got it in 1996 in Kosovo. And you're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But if you know nothing about the military, you just take him at his word. It's like, oh, that's cool. So what's it like to stab terrorists all day? He's like, oh, it's great. You know Jack Bauer? Yeah, they modeled that after me. And you're like, oh, that's so cool. But then you get a guy who's been in the military. They're like, fuck off, you dumb shit. You didn't do shit. You can't even roll the arms on your sleeves right. I doubt you have any military experience. Let me see your bed. Show me a hospital corner, then maybe I'll believe you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny. Slaughter. Oh, not seamen. Seaman, you dumbass. Seaman. A man of the sea. Not a man inside of your balls. You guys are killing me. Yeah, I trained Jack Bauer. But you see what I mean? So all these... and this is the problem I have with a lot of guys who just call out grifters. These guys are grifters. Everybody's a grifter. Here's my 8 hours of podcasts on why everybody's a grifter. I'm like, you haven't replicated shit. Even if they are grifters, you're not in a position to quantify who is or is not a grifter. I don't say you need 1,000 women to know if a guy's saying 1,000 women's a grifter or not. I'm saying you need at least one. Let's start with one. Maybe two. Once you get to two, you can extrapolate two. Two gives you a line. A line gives you a direction. And a direction gives you the ability to discern. If I didn't know any better, I'd say, you guys, how come I talk about military jargon and the first thing you guys come up with is dicks? I don't know what to make of this information. I just want you guys to think about that for a minute. Dante. Oh, yes, by the way, Dante has been awesome enough to start up a Discord for guys who are fans of me or of Jack Napier. Go on in, check it out. It's pretty fun. Learn the T-Rex references. It's a nice little like casual space, and apparently Discord's what all the kids are into now, so... $40 is overpaying. Exactly. So that's the interesting thing. So we're going to go back out of that one. I don't think we need any more of Ironwood. I don't think we need regression of the mean examples. I guess I could do that if I completely ran out of content. Just start scrolling through and see everybody in the sphere. And make fun. Like let's see who's got what claims. And then just start going off of that. But like, yeah. And I guess Fox, I'll do yours quickly here. Are all Canadian sailors called seamen like in the U.S.? Well, there's non-commissioned members and commissioned members. The non-commissioned member ranking structure goes like this. Ordinary seaman, leading seaman, master seaman, petty officer second class, petty officer first class, chief petty officer second class, chief petty officer first class. Coxswain. The officers, it's... Oh, Jesus Christ. We actually don't have ensigns, which is weird. Officer cadet. Then acting sub-lieutenant, sub-lieutenant, lieutenant, lieutenant commander, commander, captain, brigadier general, commodore, rear admiral, vice admiral, and then admiral. Oh, had to reach back for that one. Yeah. It's called Master Sailor now because woke. Are they really calling it Master Sailor now? For fuck's sakes. Out of all the stupid hills to get... I don't know, man. I'm going to lump that in with like my orange anti-Canada Day shit from the tower. It's like the stupidest hill to die on. but I find it annoying. It's like when somebody asks you, hey, and you're just sitting there minding your own business. What are you mad about? You're like, I'm not mad. Well, what are you mad about? Just tell me. And then you start getting mad because they keep asking you. Like, now I'm mad. It's like that. But whatever. Anyways, so we're on minute 124. And we're going to do the last section of this. Eventually, I want to fix this up. I want to have like a little black text thing in here to like talk about the different ones. There are no Gumroad courses, which I guess we kind of already started on. And I'm not shitting on courses per se. Like, online learning is a thing, and everybody's trying to adapt to it, and it's a bit of a Wild West environment right now. So it's interesting. Like, I remember it was, what are they? Sonia Mann and Jeff Miller were doing like an Evo Psych symposium online, and they were doing it as an online course. I think Gumroad even had registration, did this thing. They took, and they had like a great post. This has been like 2 years back about the lessons learned from it. And it was funny because this was right around the time that MLD John started his body language mastery course. Fun story on that one too, by the way. Put a pin in that. Remind me later if I forget. A lot of the problems they ran into were the exact same problems that John ran into when running body language mastery. So I'm like, oh, it's very clear. I mean, that tells you two things. One, serious academics and game guys like John are approaching the problem from different angles and coming to a convergent set of experience, which makes sense. It turns out, like, you catch a lot of the older Gumroad courses. That was like Christian McQueen when he had his like 6-figure side hustle thing. Ed has his own. Crack is the new engagement in that. I think it's course on there too. Don't quote me on that. I'm not the most familiar with his products. And a bunch of other guys. Well, not Ed in this example. I'm using Christian in this example, but his was just essentially a 10-part podcast. He would tell you stories, like do X, Y, and Z, very rudimentary stuff. And it was something I found out when they were talking about this. Like, you should do a Gumroad course. I'm like, all right, well, tell me about Gumroad courses. A couple things I found out. One, did you know that on every Gumroad course, there is only a completion rate of about 17%? That means of every 100 people that sign up for any course, 17 of them will actually do the damn course. And if I remember correctly, it was like 60% of people don't even open the damn thing. They just buy it and leave it on a bookshelf for later use. So I'm starting to wonder, it's like, I can imagine how many guys start courses with that knowledge in mind, knowing that you're not even going to open the course. They don't put effort into the course. They don't put material in the course. And to be frank, because none of you are even going to see it, they don't care. They realize that you just want to buy Americana for Coke. You just want to buy the Be Different for iPhone. You want to buy the product not for its features, but for what it says about you as a consumer, which is a crazy thing. I would argue that's probably the least MGTOW thing ever. You're essentially just buying into other people giving you mental models for your life because it's easier than making up your own. And that's the problem I have with Gumroad courses. John's solution for it was actually damned clever, and I have a feeling that's probably going to be the norm in the industry moving forward, where he does seminars. So like, yeah, do the course on your own time, but every week for 6 weeks, he's there 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. You guys go over the course material. You guys talk about whatever. And it's a way of like ensuring compliance, which almost makes sense when you think about it, because what was the point of university, right? Well, you just do these assignments, you pass them in, you do your thesis, you get your PhD. So then why do they have all these lectures? Well, the lectures are there to give you investment. And I'm like, oh, that was why nobody seemed to give a shit if you got hung over and slept in on a seminar at 8 o'clock that you were supposed to be at. But as long as your assignments were in, you still pass. Like, yeah, exactly. Those lectures are there to make sure you actually show up and do this stuff and not just leave, because it looks bad on the university. So like, why not do that for Gumroad courses? Like, fair enough. So it's going to be another thing you're going to see moving forward. If somebody does a Gumroad course and it's just like a fire and forget, here it is, here's your material, good luck to you. You can know that that guy is either naive and not good at teaching, or he knows you're not going to open it, and so he just put something together to make some money off of you. The guys that offer like group lectures, counseling, that kind of stuff, you're probably going to see that more often from people who have more to offer. That's my impression anyway. We'll see if this is a time, test, and true approach. Who knows? It's the top of the needs hierarchy. Yeah. Oh, Arnold in here in the chat too. I'm an instructor for trauma and emergency medicine courses. Some courses are blended now. Participants need to prepare at home. The overall results are substandard through the board or across the board. Yeah, man. It's just the way it is. And it's weird because the quality that you need to succeed at something is like a self motivation or self-discipline. But when you're running a course, that's for somebody who doesn't naturally have the skills already, which means they don't have self-discipline by definition. So when you do a course, you can't assume the person is a highly motivated person. You have to assume that they don't know how to be highly motivated, and that's the skill they're looking for. How do I get motivation? Give me motivation. Give me an extrinsic reward. Oh, yes, Johnny. So that was your question. Was MLD's completion rate higher? It absolutely was. And dude, I can't remember. I know it was over 50% though. But I couldn't remember the exact number. And to be honest, ask him if he can remember. That'll be great. I just remember that. Because that's what actually we were talking about. He goes, yeah, 7. He's like, exactly, that's what I heard. Because I thought it was 10%. He goes, no, it's actually 17%, but that's not the point. I do it much better. And I'm like, holy jeez. How'd you manage that? He goes, well, I show up every day and make sure they show up too. And then they complete the goddamn course. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. That would explain why he stresses himself out and goes partying and vacationing in Japan all the time. I don't know, man. I enjoy work hard, play hard as much as the next guy, but I'm kind of leveling the peaks and the valleys. So that's interesting for you guys. And then I think the other reason there are no Gumroad courses, the big one, is what is it you're even buying? Like if you guys don't know, MIT puts up their courseware for free. I got to pull this one up because I cannot remember the name of the damn professor. How to give a lecture. There it is. How to Speak by Patrick Winston. I'm going to copy this and put it in the chat. I think you guys are going to like this one. So why am I bringing this up? Well, he talks about a situation called the promise. And it's the tips to giving a good lecture or a good speech. The first thing you do is you offer a promise. A promise is telling your audience that by the time you're finished, my course, my speech, my lecture, what is it you're going to walk away from with it? What you've got to ask yourself when anybody's offering you any kind of information product, what is the promise? You don't want somebody who promises too much, but you also don't want somebody who wants promises too little. And the one he uses here is great. He says, by the end of this, you're going to leave with a bunch of new models. A bunch of new models for your lectures. Some of which you'll have heard before, many of which you haven't. Some of which you'll be able to use and give, like, you have better roles as a teacher in your life or as a person who's teaching people who's not otherwise been a teacher. And it's kind of like a very red-pilled one. Like a red pill, that's really the promise for anybody red-pilled. I am here to give you a set of tools, some of which you may know, some of which you may not know, some of which may be counterintuitive, of which, when situationally applied strategically, will provide you for a beneficial outcome more often than not. It sounds very boring, so normally what guys say is, dude, you'll get laid more, which works. But what do you see when you see guys' promises? Let me know in the chat, by the way, or wherever you want to point it on your screen. Yours is probably there. Yeah, yours is right there. There. What's the promise? When somebody offers you like the war room of masculine gentlemen, or the conference of masculine excellence, or the alpha of male masculinity, or the wood chopping lumberjack macho man Jesus was your best friend course academy, what's the promise? Some people promise the world and they know they can't deliver. And here's the problem with the promise is that there's no accountability to it. I could promise you after listening to this Red Morning podcast that you'll have sex 5 times in the next 5 days. Just by listening to this. Completely ridiculous claim. Won't happen. I mean, it may happen, but it'll have nothing to do with whether I'm running my mouth here or not, right? But what happens if I'm lying? What happens when I'm lying? What happens when I get caught? You're going to go online. It's like, that asshole promised me 5 girls in 5 days. I didn't get 2. Fuck that guy. To which I'll point out to him, like, look at this idiot running his mouth. And then everybody will love me on social media because they love indignation. You can't hold me accountable. You can't sue me. You can't get a refund unless I want you to have a refund. It's not like reputation matters. Like, dude, Mike Cernovich was an asshole, talking about all kinds of nonsense for years. And then one day he decides, you know what? I'm going to talk about Trump. And now everybody loves him because he's got a whole bunch of new followers, and nobody remembers back when he was doing deadlifts wearing a pirate shirt, talking about sleeping with ladyboys in Thailand. Nobody remembers that shit, except for me. So there is no reputation to keep. So you gotta be more discerning. Is that promise a realistic promise? Some people don't promise anything. They infer. And that's like more insidious because they understand the dynamic. And so they don't promise anything. They just start selling you on lifestyle. Dude, look at my Lamborghini. Dude, look at how great my life is. Dude, look at these chicks beside me that are definitely not prostitutes. It's like, dude, I can see the scars on her nipples from the goddamn plastic surgery. Don't tell me you got yourself a trad wife with double D's. Like, get out of here. Petridge Farms remembers. Yeah, the MAGA stuff. What was MAGA? What did they promise? Actually, that's a great example. What did MAGA promise? He promised one thing. He promised the wall. The Make America Great Again, like, what does great even mean? It didn't mean anything. People that liked him assumed it meant going back to the 1950s and having a job and not outsourcing to China. People on the left assumed it meant, yeah, we're going to put black people back on the plantation. And everybody just, like, put their emotional jargon on it. So it was really a meaningless slogan. But Build a Wall had something. I am going to stop illegal immigration. Either physically or metaphorically, he was building a wall. Now, I don't know. Talk to an American if you want to find out if he did it or not. But that's the point. Promises can be legitimate or illegitimate. And you really... The only thing you can take as valid on a promise is whether it's appealing to you emotionally or it's appealing to you rationally. It's very hard, too, because our egos are very good at having emotional appeals sound logical. Because that's the whole point of our frontal lobe. It's to justify our emotional drives under a veneer of logic and ration. Who'da thunk? Who'da thunk? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Bitches ain't shit because that girl who was going to touch my pee-pee said she couldn't stand me and she took half my shit. And so now I'm going to develop an entire mathematical theory about how women ain't shit because that chick fucking really hurt me. Don't tell me we're not the emotional creatures. We're emotional. We just have a nice convoluted way. Well, girls don't even have any pretense of trying to make a justification for it. They just talk until the thoughts go away. Guys actually like, one sec, I gotta write a book on this. Why women ain't shit. A manifesto. That's why every incel killer has to write a goddamn manifesto first. Because without a logical justification, well then we got one of a leg to stand on. So yeah, what are the promises? Teach you a skill. I think that's the best promise you can see, where somebody's like, I have X, Y, and Z skills. I can teach you X, Y, and Z skills. They don't make a claim that what the skill set can do for you. Like they may say, body language, great example. What promise do you make with body language? Well, I'll teach you what it means when certain behaviors are done, which ones show an indicator of interest, which ones show an indicator of disinterest. It's not saying what you can use those skills for. That's up to you to decide. Again, how many plates are optimal? Well, what the fuck does optimal mean? That's for you. That's not for the Gumroad course to tell you, right? Law is a great one too. I think Chesty had an example, like when you're studying for the bar, if you sign up to some guy's course for a bar study, he's going to teach you how to pass a bar exam. Now, why do you want to pass the bar exam? Well, that's up to you to answer. His job is just to give you this skill of which you should already have a predefined use for. Something to think so. No, Foxwolf, the next book is going to be on dread, by the way. Like I said, the same way I'm kind of talking about and dispelling a lot of myths right now in this one, dread has kind of been the same way. Like it's been, again, too many people running their mouths, not a lot of people reading. And so there's a lot of field reports out there and a lot of material that's out there and a lot of experience that's out there. And it just needs to be condensed in a proper format. Difficult as fuck, too. Yeah, the only thing a course can do is speed up the rate at which you learn something. Well, I wouldn't even say speed up. It's pretty much it moves the drag. Like for example, starting an online business, if you want to know how, you can probably figure it out. You start with like the base thing, get a customer to give me money. Well, how do I do that? Well, I need some kind of shopping cart. I need some kind of website. And then you can kind of search and do this stuff out yourself. But a course, for example, would show you, okay, you need X, Y, and Z before you get started. Work on your first client first. And then you get all that stuff out of the way so you're no longer having to answer these basic questions because they've already been answered. You just set that stuff up, start getting it running, and then you could focus on bigger questions, which I guess makes it faster. But not so much faster as that instead of asking questions, you're given answers before you know they're going to come up. It's like precognition. Yeah, foundation. So I'm not going to shit on online Gumroad courses as much as it sounds like I wanted it to. I'm going to shit on most guys running online Gumroad courses because most guys are trash. But again, had they listened to anybody's brand building 101 Gumroad course for $297, they'd have told you the whole point of the funnel. And here's something you'll learn. I'll teach you about sales funnels. What little I know. I still have it on there, a little whiteboard. Tofu, Mofu, and Bofu. If you know those three things, that's all you need to know about people who run online business. That's top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. So what's the top of the funnel? Well, top of the funnel is learn my name, bitch. Don't care about anything other than you recognizing that I exist. That's me on Twitter talking shit about anything. Doing out stupid memes about how women ain't shit. That video with Emily, the feminist who laughs at Richard Cooper. That's the one about the TikTok chick that was on drugs. Granted, I kind of bastardized it a bit because I hate the idea of just like dancing like a clown for you guys, but top of the funnel. At the end of that, all I want from you is to know I exist and to know where you can find more stuff if you're interested. That's it. This podcast, for a large reason, is a middle of the funnel. Middle of the funnel is where you show somebody that you're not a fucking idiot. Blogs, middle of the funnel. Videos on YouTube, middle of the funnel. Anything that you get to show off your expertise. Now, a lot of people treat Twitter like a middle of the funnel activity, and I used to for the longest time. I'm here to tell you that's a mistake. For people that use Twitter to impart useful information to you, just know that they suck at marketing. Not saying it makes them bad at what they're doing. I'm just saying they're bad at marketing and they don't understand the purpose of funnels because nobody reads your tweet storm about shit. And granted, I still do it myself, but fuck it. It's my account. I'll ruin it if I want to. Derek L., thank you for the $5 super chat. Hey man, thanks for CanCon. What's the link to your community? Yeah, I guess I'll throw that in there while we're talking about the funnels here. Because that's a bottom of the funnel activity. Here, I'll put the link for you. I think that's it. Anyways, actually, what's good about that is it just started at the beginning of the month. I always tell guys, sign up. I actually set it up so it doesn't charge until like the beginning of the month. Well, it tends to do it like day 4 or 5 because Patreon is slow as fuck. So then you guys can come in, you check it out, you see the rewards, you see what's offered. And if you like it, you can stay. And if not, you just leave before you dip any cash in there. And I'm fine with that. I'm that confident about it that I'm willing to let you guys hang out for a month. You couldn't observe all the content anyway. We're about 107 lectures in on very specific male problems and their solutions. From everything. From divorce to jobs to sex to moving out from your parents, everything. So yeah, definitely worth it. And then every week we still do more of them on Fridays. We just finished other ones then. So that's the bottom of the funnel. Middle of the funnel is your way of showing expertise. You offer as much and as valuable as information as you can to establish you know what the fuck you're doing and you're not stupid. Every one of my YouTube videos, middle of the funnel. Every one of my blog posts, middle of the funnel. Every podcast, middle of the funnel. Bottom of the funnel is the hard sell. Fuck files, bottom of the funnel. Patreon, bottom of the funnel. Rule Zero Live, bottom of the funnel. Now, what's the difference between the bottom of the funnel and the top of the funnel? Well, bottom of the funnel is the hard sell. That's a product. There's a cost to it. Enjoy it. It doesn't say, like middle of the funnel, you do have value in it. I would argue middle of the funnel always have like an element of sales pitch to it. By the time you're at the bottom of the funnel, there's no need to sell anything. There's nothing to sell. This is just strict information. Now, it can sometimes be an elaboration on stuff. Like I can do a 10-minute video on She's Not Yours, It's Just Your Turn, which is great. but it's not going to be as good as, like, for example, an hour in Patreon where I'm telling guys specifically why She's Not Yours, It's Just Your Turn is a solid mental model and things to take from it. I can put inside of Fuck Files, You Ain't Shit and That's Okay. And it's going to be a far larger depth of information than I could ever do on a podcast. But that's the point. Now, a lot of guys are like, well, I don't want it to be corporate. I just want to do my thing. Look, take aside the corporate aspect to it. Think of this as a structure. And honestly, as a structure, it works great. It works great for a few reasons. The first reason is you, as an audience, for lack of a better word, get to invest as far as you want to. Like, I'm sure most of you guys are super annoyed that every time you go on Twitter, half of the guys you like following are just selling shit. And you're like, I don't want to buy your shit. I just like seeing your tweets every now and then. I just want to see you piss off a feminist. I just want to see wham and ain't shit memes. So those guys are top of the funnel customers, and that's fine. The more people that know you, the more people that will find out that they know you. It's like a snowball effect, right? So those people don't want to learn about sexual dynamics. They just want to see me put out a stupid meme calling women ain't shit. And they can have that. There you go. And now the only thing they see is an ad like, hey, just so you know, YouTube videos are over here, blogs over there, podcast is here. Yeah, whatever. Some of them will be like, you know what? I'm actually kind of curious. Sure, let's do the podcast. And they'll come into the podcast. And you get, so if like, I don't know the numbers, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass here. But let's say half the people who find out who you are through the top of the funnel are curious and will read a blog post or watch a video. And they're like, oh, this is kind of neat. And then those people, they actually want some in-depth stuff. They want a knowledge. They like seeing who's good at what they do. They're the guys that like me. I'll watch a YouTube channel of a guy running a sawmill, and he talks about how to run a sawmill, the issues with the blades, that kind of shit. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. So when it comes to sawmill knowledge, this guy knows what he's doing because I don't know, and he's explained it to me to the point where I know. Great. And then for them, they'll be like, okay, so now we got merch. There's a course. Here's a book. Maybe I just want to learn about sawmilling. I don't really care about that stuff. Like, that's fine. Just stay here, watch the videos. Now, let's say, I don't know, 10% of those guys in the middle are like, yeah, you know what? I do want to see this. I might even start my own sawmill. I want to see your book. I wouldn't mind buying your merch. I would love to go around, you know, run into another guy who's wearing like the Sawmill for Success t-shirt, and we could talk about his channel. It's like I'm sure guys who wear PewDiePie merch run into other people wearing PewDiePie merch and like, dude, did you see last week's thing? And there's like an instant repertoire or rapport there. There's like a little bit of a clubhouse thing. That's fine. But everybody gets exactly what they want and nothing more. Like, if you don't want, I don't want the Sawmill merch at all. I just want to see him shit on feminists. I just want to see him do pictures of amazing pieces of wood. I just want to see some cabinets on Instagram, right? That's all they want, and that's all they get. The problem comes with a lot of guys when you put people in different categories. Like, if you get a bottom of the funnel type person who really likes your content, loves your attention stuff, but he really wants to invest in it, and all you do is you show him women ain't shit means, it's going to turn him off. He's going to be like, dude, I came here because I liked hearing Rollo Tomassi talk about his books. I didn't come here to see a cup that had a picture of like no ma'am on it and just shitting on yelling at a girl in a studio in Miami, hypothetically. So you put bottom of the funnel people in the top of the funnel, they get frustrated and they just leave. You know what? Fuck this guy, I'm out of here. You put top of the people in the bottom of the funnel, you get, dude, this guy's just a grifter. He doesn't know what the fuck he wants. I'm not buying his dumb shit. And they'll just slag your product constantly. So why are you wasting everybody's time? You just gave him indignation. Yeah, we've been asking for merch a while now. Yeah, I know. I was to be continued on that. I've had some discussions on that, and there's some movement on that front, but I don't want to spoil a surprise until it's done. I'll get into reasons for that, but that's kind of side the point. But here's the point. So when I talk about like there is no Gumroad course, you need to go through the funnel properly to understand what kind of person you're dealing with and if it's the kind of thing that appeals to you. If you're just a guy who likes the clubhouse of masculinity, I just like the idea of guys getting together online and their He-Man Woman Haters Club. Well, you're going to see a whole bunch of like goofy wham ain't shit means to stay in the top of the funnel and be comfortable there. And nobody's going to expose you to their bottom of the funnel stuff so you don't shit up on their brands. If you're one of the guys like this, I would love to see a guy talk for 2 hours about sexual dynamics. You're a middle of the funnel guy. Fucking awesome. Maybe throw in a super chat. Thank you very much. I'll definitely read out your question and much appreciate the support for the channel, by the way, guys. For the 7 or 8 of you guys that have already done it, huge thank you to you guys. You are actually what keep this going, and I appreciate you 10 times as much as everybody else. So yeah, it's really just a way of structuring Yes, Brian, I am Canadian. West Coaster, BC boy. Alberta and BC, Quebec, Ontario. I've basically lived in half the country already. I'm about as Canadian as mac and cheese and Timmy's. And a couple Timbits with a double double. You know what I'm saying, bud? Yeah. A little bit of an accent when I pull it out. Oh, Batman origin stories. That's the part I was getting, the last part on this. So everybody loves when I talk about this. And I always find every time somebody joins any kind of like man space, the first thing they got to do is tell you their life story. And I'm just like, it's Batman origin. Yeah, I get it. So some woman did something, didn't work out so well for you, now you're here. That's how everybody gets here. But no. I got to tell you about how the Joker killed both my parents every fucking time I start up. I'm like, all right, I get it. And everybody tells the same story. If you have to tell your Batman origin story, that's middle of the funnel shit. But the part I don't like about it is it's an emotional appeal. It's like, what's that show? America's Got Talent? Where you see a bunch of people on stage, a couple of people clowning around, the Simon guy saying, this guy's an asshole, I'm going to vote him a 0. They hit the button, he gets off stage, he has a temper tantrum. And then all of a sudden, you know who's got the amazing voice, because there's always that guy who has the sob story coming up, like out of nowhere. Yeah, so I was raised in a small town. We ate dirt for sustenance, and my mom died, and my dad died, and I had to raise my 17 sisters and brothers. I had to get a job in a coal mine, and I almost lost my precious voice, but the one thing that kept me sane was singing. And then all of a sudden they get out there, and they're like, look at this guy, what an idiot. His shirt's ripped and everything. And then he starts, and then as soon as he's singing, everybody's like, holy shit, where'd that voice come from? The music starts up, they drop the things from the ceiling, and everybody gets like... That's what I think of when I think of Batman origin stories. Like, if you're going to tell one, you better end off afterwards singing like a falsetto like a motherfucker. Make Simon Cowell hit the goddamn golden button on your ass. So that's my thing on that. Caleb, though, to answer your thing, the Canadian accent, there's actually multiple Canadian accents. It depends. The standard one you guys think of is like a... I used to call it Northern Ontario, but it's weird because I would hear the same thing in BC and Alberta. That's that twangy Canadian. Like, fucking rights, bud. If you guys want to see a great example of it, there's a music video. It's probably the funniest shit as a Canadian I've ever seen. It's Going for a Rip. Going for a rip, bud? There it is. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to send it to you guys. You're going to enjoy it. So this is generally what people think of when they think of a Canadian accent. But that's not the only Canadian accent. Newfies have like a Newfoundlandese to it, which is weird. And there's like a bay bye and a city bye. They don't say boy, they say bye. Good examples of the Newfie ones. Everything has some. Like they have like a French thing to it. Like that's some far, bud. Or that's some close. Had a girl once, she told me I was some cute bye. And I was like, that's fucking stupid. That's another Canadian accent. The French have all kinds of it. There's like Kutzme, like Campagnol French, like rednecky. And then there's like the I want to be Parisian, Quebec City French. There's the Montreal International French. It's kind of fun facts. There's the Gatineau, like quacky French. Then Alberta, you have the I sound American accent. Saskatchewan's got its own. It's almost like Minnesota and Saskatchewan are very close for accents. I'd say they're probably closer than most. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, when you're thinking of the most, it's definitely this one here. Going for a rip. It's just funny because I actually knew guys who were talking about smoking darts and going for a rip. If you guys don't know a dart cigarette, going for a rip just means taking a ride in your truck. 2.6. That means, 26 ounces of alcohol. So like for you guys, you would just call it like the bottle, quart or whatever. Born in Sherbrooke. Jesus. Yeah. A lot of bud at the end of things. Same way Americans say dude and man, we'll say bud. Yeah, what's going on, bud? Fucking rights, eh? JJ McCullough, he's like a Canadian contributor. He always talks he's like a gay dude from Vancouver who talks on the conservative in Globe and Mail Weekly. I can't remember. Anyways, he's got it's weird because he's from Vancouver, but he has the thickest Canadian accent I've ever heard. And I'm like, he even says a boot. And I'm thinking, are you putting that on? Because like I'm from BC and I don't remember anybody talking with that thick of an accent. I don't give a fuck. Sam, so we're ending this one off here in a few minutes, by the way. Yeah, we're on minute 154. So Sam, with your $5 super chat, thank you. Is Schopenhauer still nursing the Canada Day hangover? Carl is not here. Carl has some big things going on in his life right now, which have kind of preoccupied him. I'm not at liberty to say what they are, but it's definitely good shit. No, he's not getting married. God, no. But yeah, what can I say? The guy with like the multiple six-figure job and the six-figure side hustle and the plates on the go and the girlfriend thing now. It's like, yeah, he's busy as hell. If we can carve out 2 hours of his time to talk about dicks, it's a fucking blessing. What about the Trailer Park Boys? Aren't they Canadian? Yes, Trailer Park is the Maritimes accident. That's like Nova Scotia. And you'll know that one when they just ignore the letter A. Like you get in your car by the Burr. You know what I mean? So that's like, yeah, it's like East Coast Maritime, but it's not as thick as like a Newfie accent. I have a buddy who's from Nova Scotia, which is hilarious. It's like Moncton or something like that. And you can tell he has it because when he's sober, he just sounds like very standard, neutral Canadian accent. As soon as he starts getting drunk, that's when the Nova Scotia starts kicking in there. You know what I'm talking about, bud? Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, so it's kind of neat. So we're kind of like the States that way. Anyways. We're going to end this one off here. So I'm going to do some little chit-chat in the chat with you guys. And then we're going to call it here in about the next 4 minutes. Everybody loves the Trailer Park Boys. Although I heard in the States, when you guys have the Trailer Park Boys, they bleep out all the swearing. And the creator of the Trailer Park Boys said they had to do it because in America you weren't allowed to swear as much on TV. But he said it actually made it sound funnier to him because it was all bleeped. I think that's an American sensibility thing. So I've heard it bleeped, and I just like it better when they're cussing, when they're just swearing and smoking dope. Yeah. All right. Drunk accents are hilarious. Yeah, they always come out. No worries, Adam. I see. Thank you for the show. Always a pleasure. Like I said, you guys are giving me 2 hours of your Saturday morning. The least I could do was entertain you and offer you some insight into something in a nice middle of the funnel level of activity. So what the hey? Again, if you like it, feel free. Hit likes. Subscribe to the channel. See some more. I got a second channel where we do this much more casually. Much more customer focused or like client focused. We're just fucking around, doing a little Tekken, some Minecraft, whatever. Get that thing monetized and then build up a little bit of a community there because I'm not going to lie to you. Every guy in the sphere has the manosphere is full of retards and I can't handle it in here. And so that's my goal. Like my goal is always like to segregate me slightly more from idiots talking about bitches ain't shit. Not because I think bitches are great. It's because I think those guys are idiots. And what's the law of power? Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. On that note, and the completely opposite version, is Tom Longley. Thank you for the Australian $5 super chat. Speaking of accents, they got their own dialect. Yeah. And education, of course. Thank you, Marty, for putting the link in the chat to it, though. By the way, subscribe, guys. We're like 620 now. Want to get that thing to 1,000 and start throwing some money into production for that channel. So it'll be a lot of fun. Where do I want to leave off on here? You guys already know about fuck files and all that stuff. I'm not going to... Dude, okay, Dante, you're talking about the Canada and apologies thing. Canada doesn't actually apologize more. We use sorry in the same way that Americans say what. Like for us, sorry is just a filler word. Like if you say something, I can't hear it. Sorry, what was that? We're not actually apologizing. We just couldn't hear you. And sorry for us is like a polite way of like drawing attention to that. Where Americans tend to be more like Quebecois style blunt. What? What? What'd you say? You're like, ugh. Oh, yeah, but that was the point. It's like this distancing. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. 48 laws of power, man. I always throw this out on Twitter. It's like, dude, as soon as I get YouTube higher than Twitter, I'm going to stop fucking engaging idiots on Twitter. I'm just going to use that to throw out links to the content because, like, I hate Twitter. But biggest subscriber network I have. So I'm like, all right, I got to play with it now. Then YouTube. If I could get the second channel bigger than the first channel, oh, you better believe me, I'd stop whamming ain't shit in a heartbeat. I mean, let's face it. Purarchy has a point. I could put out some big academic stuff and a lot of field work and a lot of experience on women, on men, on relationships, on business, on whatever. But If I could just fuck around and play like Tekken all day, oh, you better believe I'd ditch that shit in a heartbeat. Well, you'll never be a you can still be a millionaire playing Tekken. You'd be surprised. Whatever it takes to get there. I'm not too proud. But whatever. Probably going to take a hiatus on that channel anyway once the gyms open back up in Toronto. Thank God. I think it's next month. There's a great TikTok out there where Doug Ford is like, I don't know what you guys are complaining about. The only things not open right now are like strip clubs and massage parlors and whatever. And then I'm like, my girl shows it to me. I'm like, all right, click the comments. She clicks the comments. We look. It's 5,000 people saying the gym, you fat fuck. I was like, well done. Well done. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of banter at the end to kind of, cleanse your palate because Rule Zero is coming up. It's going to be on Troy's channel. And I believe we're talking about the big emotional promise of enough time to rest when you're in the grave. Yeah. Ryan only joins OnlyFans when they go mainstream. Oh, yeah, that's right. They're getting rid of porn. I actually might because they have some really good like management tools that Patreon just does not have. And if it wasn't for the fact you guys would be going on there for dick pics, I'd probably have done it by now. That and the migration's a pain in the ass. Build your own gym. 2,500, you get the best gear, 1 ounce of gold. I'll put this way, Adam. For me, money is never the issue about stuff where I live. It's space. Like, I'm downtown Toronto. I'm next door to the CN Tower. I don't exactly have a giant space for a gym. My building already has a gym, so I'm not about to take and put another gym in here. But that's the problem, is that when the government decree says the gyms can't stay open, then by law we have to close it, so it's annoying. Caleb, Ryan, would you ever go on Fresh and Fit? Dude, anything's possible. Anything's possible. I'm not planning on it, though, and I don't think they're planning on having me. So... MGTOW guys like to use the bait and switch. They say don't get married because of the laws, but somehow that translates to game doesn't work. Oh, yeah, it's... You can, post hoc justifications, man. You know it when you see it. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for sticking around. Minute 1 past the hour. Enjoy yourselves. We'll see you on Troy's channel. I don't have a link for it, so you just have to go look for it. Doing pull-ups on tree branches. I'd love to. Tree branches are small here. I'll snap that shit. We'll see. I stay active as I can. I'm just going to have George Bruno arms for another month or 2. We'll get back into it, though. I'll vlog it. What's the point of working out if you can't make content, right? Anyways, guys, cheers. I'll see you there.